Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I'm Ted Ings. We have a special panel together here with some retail superstars. Tom Kline from Better Vantage Point is going to lead the discussion. Tom, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Great to be here. Thanks for having us, Ted, here in the fast lane.
Yeah, we are. And I see a lot of familiar faces and friends here. So, Tom, I'm going to let you get things underway with the introductions. I will exit and I'll see you back on the other side.
Okay. Thanks, Ted. Let's take 30 seconds and let's start with you, Kristina, if you can introduce yourself.
Sure. My name's Kristina Vaquera. I'm a partner with Jackson Lewis here in their Norfolk, Virginia office. We focus or specialize on working with and defending companies with regards to all of their workplace law issues.
Very good. Fleming?
Hi, I'm Fleming Ford, and I am the Director of Strategic Growth and with NCM Associates. So we work with dealerships on their culture, workplace productivity, and performance management. And I also moderate our HR 20 groups for NCM.
Okay, great. Welcome. Allie, good to see you.
Oh, so good to see you. Thanks for having me. I'm Allie Peters. I'm the Fixed Operations Director at Jaguar, Land Rover, San Antonio.
All right. And last but certainly not least, Sean.
Thank you, Tom. Sean Kingrey, Vice President of Fixed Operations for the Kaiser Automotive Group in Madison, Wisconsin.
Great. And with that, Sean, they have not seen these questions beforehand, so I'm going to spring these questions on each of them. So here we go. Sean, you're first.
Great.
What can HR do to better support the unique needs of the fixed op workforce? How do you collaborate with HR on issues like hiring, disciplinary action, or policy changes in service and parts? Do you involve HR proactively in training and culture building initiatives rather than when there's only a problem? Is HR part of your team, and do the technicians and HR employees feel that way? And I'm going to ask the same question to all of you. So Sean's getting it first, and then we'll see what everybody thinks.
Well, the good news is I don't have to recite that question again, because it'd be like getting married. What was the vows again? No, sorry.
Tom, me neither.
It's going to be such a cliche answer, and everybody's going to go, really, that was the answer? I think, again, as it is with everything, it's communication. As far as HR needs to communicate as clear it is, and we need to communicate with HR the same way. And I'll say this to Kristina because that's what her role is. But guys, HR doesn't need to be the bad place. I make jokes about it, and everybody knows that. But it doesn't need to be the forbidden place to go. All right. I actually have a very good relationship with my HR director. She's at the same level I am. There's no power struggle. There's nothing like that. And as far as what HR can help with, it really rolls back into this. Whatever hiring source you're using, or whether it's through an outside source, or you have a hire company, the amount of resumes we get, and let's be honest, it's very obvious the amount of resumes we get that they're just hitting reply all, and you get 30 on every Sunday afternoon. So you stop going through them. If HR can help to weed through the bad ones, and when I say bad ones, when you're looking for a diesel technician, for example, in Allie and I's world or whatever, when I'm looking for a diesel technician, I don't need the McDonald's cook that's been there for 10 years. Because by the time, Mr. ADD, myself openly admittingly, by the way, by the time I get to resume number 6, I stop paying attention. If HR could pre-screen, realistically, hey, Sean, I think this is a good one or not, because some of the hiring sources, and I won't name the company that we use that collects the applications, they give you a percentage score and they say this guy's at 95% or this gal's 100%, and the person doesn't even know how to spell automotive, and that's what scares you, is you're going, this person has been a busser. I'm not picking on that. They bust tables for 5 years, and they say they're a line tech or a service writer or a service director for a monster store, and it filters it out. So again, I still think that goes back to communication. You set the standard, what you're looking for, let them pre-screen. The last thing I've seen, Tom, I know I don't know the questions, exit interviews. I 100% believe in exit interviews. We spent a lot of time on Ted's panels, a lot, talking about how important the welcome aboard is. And I know Tully and everybody does a good job of that, making sure their passwords are set up and that they feel welcome and they get to meet everybody. It costs nothing to say hello. But let's talk about exit interviews. I want to know why they're leaving. If they're leaving, and again, I'll stop so everybody has time to answer. When an employee, if Allie works for me and Allie leaves and has 10 jobs in the next 2 years, The problem was probably Allie. But when Allie leaves me and goes somewhere and knocks it out of the park and succeeds, we were the problem. And we need to own that, and we need to address it. So what does HR do? HR needs to communicate with us on that.
Sean, just before we go on to the next person, do you do exit interviews when you fire someone?
I asked HR to do it. I asked HR to sit in the meeting, and then whoever whether it's me or one of my managers, I want HR to have a one-on-one. I want the gloves off. Because if I'm the problem, let's be honest. And again, I'm picking on Allie because I love Allie to death. If I'm the problem, and Allie and I have a personality conflict, Allie's not going to speak freely in front of me. But Allie's going to speak very freely if I'm not in the room, I think. I hope so, at least.
Understood. And Kristina, as far as what Sean answered and this question, what do you see in your practice in terms of what could be done to prevent these kinds of problems that we're talking about, which is, lawsuits and EEOC concerns and that kind of thing?
Sure. I think partnering with HR, I love that concept. And I think it's not always well executed in my experience. So I think the earlier on employers collaborate with HR and work with them, the more proactive and preventative you can be in avoiding risk and liability. Their job is to know a little bit more about the law and a little bit more about what may be risky and have liability. I think management and fixed op roles would really be to at least issue spot, know when something may be a problem or an issue, and then get to HR and have that deeper conversation about maybe whether it really is or isn't and what might be some solutions. To help make sure that they are compliant and that they are mitigating that risk. To the extent HR can't answer it, or it is something that's more complicated, that's usually then when they reach out to external resources like me, so that we can kind of look at it from a more legally compliant legal risk issue. But I love the whole focus on exit interviews. I think that actually is very key. I think you can learn a lot. I think when we, a lot of times when I get involved in litigation or a claim or a demand, sometimes when we go back and we look at those exit interview notes, we can see some of the issues right then and there. I think it's important to make sure too that you do something with the information that you get out of that exit interview. If it's a complaint that needs to be investigated, if it's a supervisor that we're getting recurrent issues brought up about, we do need to dive further, like Sean said, and kind of see whether or not we're the problem. We will, even if it's a fairly innocuous one, we will get a bad reputation very quick, and it will impact future hiring for sure.
Thank you. Fleming, your thoughts here?
No, I think that there is definitely a standard of people don't think that HR understands the shop world. And what's interesting is that my 3 HR 20 groups that we have asked for us to have our fixed ops instructors come in and teach them, bay capacity and, how to do like repair order calculations and effective labor rates. And they're asking for that. So I do think they want to partner as best as they can. But we do have to have probably help from Sean and Allie working with them on, hey, here's what I'm looking for in the resume. Here's, giving them kind of your terminology and language. And I think, they do desperately want to be partners and not the police, right? So I do think, Sean, you really hit on something that I think we all need to be better at. And I'm excited to kind of continue to find ideas with you guys.
Great. Allie?
All right. So I will echo almost everything that Sean said. I think that for me, going into management or early on in my career, I didn't have the working relationship that I do now with the HR team. And to Sean's point, I have a wonderful relationship with my HR director. And I think that the thing that I needed as a leader was to understand what their role was. And like you guys are all saying, they aren't supposed to be the police. They're a tool, they are support for me to be able to accomplish what we need to on our team. And they're able to keep me compliant because that is not necessarily my innate strength. I like a little gray. So all of you guys would probably be driven crazy at first. But then once we figured out what the goal was and what I needed and how you needed me to do it, then that was where the magic felt like it happened, because I felt, like I said, I mean, I've been in management for 10 years now. And so navigating and understanding what really each party's role wasn't clear when I started. And once that became clear, it was a game changer. And to Sean's point, it's all about communication. If I say I need this because of X, Y, and Z, or I want to do this because of X, Y, and Z, then it's how do we do what we need to do while still making sure that we're taking care of our people, making sure that we're protecting our company, making sure we're being compliant, so that we don't have to have Kristina step in and go litigate for us.
Right. I think
we love you, Kristina, but we don't want you around. Yeah,
that's right.
I think
I
it's
get that
really,
a lot.
Kristina's got tough skin. Allie, what I really liked about what you said was that this is a process, and there's education, and groups like NCM and TED and Sarah Van Tyne are here to help educate the dealer community as to what we need to be doing as a whole. And education in of itself is a process, right? And so you don't just get the HR education on day 72 and then that's it, right? There should be, and I would advocate that there should be a continuous process of making sure that everyone understands the changing laws, the changing times, what's happening in the world, and what's happening with technicians. Is there a technician shortage, or is it a shortage of people in HR not hiring the right people, like Sean was talking about? So I like that. Next question, we're going to start with Fleming. Fleming, it's often joked that dealerships hire with a gut feeling and a handshake. In 2025, is our industry behind the times in using data-driven hiring practices like assessment tests, structured interviews, thorough background screening? What outdated hiring practices should fixed ops leaders drop? And what modern techniques would you challenge your peers to adopt to land better quality talent and avoid costly bad hires?
All that, huh, Tom?
And more.
And more. No, great question. And I do think it's a huge opportunity, because where I see, mistakes sometimes that service managers make is they just get excited that someone has their certifications, right? And they're like, oh, just sign them up. And they're not really taking the time to assess, do they fit our values? Are they going to be a good teammate? Are they going to provide, do they have great hospitality and customer, focused, goals and so forth? So I think coming up with scorecards, as you said, putting more data behind the interviewing, learning how to interview, learning assessments and which ones can help you identify, we don't want technicians who aren't detail oriented, right? We want technicians that care to get things done and follow process and make sure there's not a lot of mistakes coming back. So that's where the HR partnership, I think, becomes critical. So teaching interview skills, finding the assessments, also, avoiding any type of biases in the interviews or inappropriate things that can also get us in compliance trouble, asking the questions you're not really supposed to ask, all of those things. And I think also making sure that females feel comfortable entering into the shop. I think that's a real huge opportunity.
Give us the top 3 things you shouldn't ask.
Let's see, who's going to take care of the kids, right?
That's one.
Yeah. I think, one of my least favorite questions and probably the most popular question is, tell me about yourself, right? It doesn't, it leaves it up to the candidate to tell us, and they're only going to tell us the good things. So you have very limited time to find out about this candidate and what their work ethic is, what their teamwork is like, what their attitude is like. I'd rather hire for their attitude than skill, and make sure you're just not retreading people from other bad backgrounds and cultures that we don't want to make toxic in our store. And I think the third question, which isn't don't ask, but do ask, is ask behavioral based interview questions, which means ask about prior behaviors, prior situations, that come from the past. So tell me about a time, Tom, that you and a colleague had a disagreement and what happened. Or describe a time that you were working on a repair and you couldn't find the solution quickly. So you want to see how they've handled things in the past, so that's the best predictor for the future.
Great counsel. Kristina, let's start with the top 3 things that people should not ask on interviews, of which you hear all the time. So categorize them by popularity. And then if you have any further thoughts on what Fleming said or the question.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, right off the bat, I mean, in terms of things we shouldn't be asking, a lot of people like to ask, have you ever been injured on the job? And obviously that would be problematic for a number of reasons, for workers' comp issues, as well as disability related issues. Asking something that can, may be well-intended, but can come across as being a stereotype question. So questions about kids, questions about, I don't know, complimenting someone. You think you're complimenting someone on a hairstyle or dress or nails or something else that maybe is really not pertinent to the interview. It can be easily misunderstood or perceived as not being a compliment, being something else. And being inconsistent. I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that we see, inconsistent questions. Asking a female different questions than you'd ask a male candidate, for example. So those are some of the top 3 things that I'd say avoid. But kind of picking up on some of the things that Fleming went to, I think you need to make sure you keep really good interview notes. We have been seeing more and more claims with regards to failure to hire. And you want to make sure that you've got your questions written out in advance. You know what you're going to ask. Going back to that collaboration with HR, making sure you've collaborated to make sure those are good questions. You've vetted those. And then you ask the same questions of everyone, keeping notes, so that when you rack and stack how you're going to call people back for a second interview, or who you're going to make an offer to, we can recreate that situation, because we may not see that claim or that demand for months or a year even. We may not be litigating that for several years. So recreating that memory of what happened is going to be a challenge if you don't have any of those notes. And then the last thing I'd point out would be making sure that you're multi-state compliant. You need to know where you're recruiting from. Our states have become a patchwork of various laws, kind of backfilling for a lack of federal response on a lot of these issues. And what you can or cannot ask in an interview, what you can and cannot test for, whether or not you can even run a background check, and even whether or not you can have someone check the box that says have they committed a crime before, varies wildly state to state. And so it's not just the state that you're in. As you start to recruit for those higher level positions, especially, or skilled positions where you're going to go out of state potentially with your posting and or your recruiting efforts, you must be compliant in the state that you are recruiting in. It's not just where you're located, it's the state that you've availed yourself of that candidate in. Great
thoughts. Allie, you're up.
All right. Well, that's fascinating. And we are a Texas-based company, and all of our stores are in Texas. So that was just kind of an eye-opening bit of information, Kristina, because there have been people that have made a move from a different state, and I don't know other rules. So things to know and things to be aware of as we have those conversations. This is really helpful. Gosh, I think for me, this is probably inappropriate, sorry, Tom and Ted, but when Fleming was saying, who's going to watch the kids? I actually had, this is way a long time ago, and so it's a funny story now, but I had a general manager ask me if he needed to talk to my husband before I made a decision. And I just thought that was not okay. So I just, again, history tells the story of what the future looks like. But I think for us, one of the things that we've really started focusing on is it aligns with what you both were just saying, is the consistency, is having notes. So we have a a note section for our interviews, and we have multiple people involved in that, and so that we can keep that record and say, okay, it wasn't just Allie saying, oh, my best friend needs a job, so I'm going to hire them, and then in 6 months when it doesn't work out, everyone says, why? How did we even get here? Like, we are all involved, we are all engaged. There have been a lot of things that I feel grateful for with my career, because I've always worked for fairly progressive groups, and so from day one, almost 15 years ago, I did do a test before I was hired, and it was personality based, and there was a bit of skill, but mostly who am I as a person and how do I fit in this culture? And I think that was something that started very, very early on in my career. And when I am looking to bring someone onto my team, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Fleming. I think that you hire for attitude. I think that you hire for culture fit. Outside of a very few roles in our organization, you can be taught the job. And if you have the right attitude, you have the right energy, you're someone who brings value to the team and lifts us up as we grow, we're going to teach the rest.
That's a great point. Sean, your thoughts here?
Well, and again, I can reiterate, because this is kind of really more on Fleming and Kristina's area, because here's, I think, the key is, and I'm not proud to say this, but as I'm 31 years into this, guys, the one thing I say, and some of Ted's other partners in the marketing field is, guys, we're parts and service managers on the fixed operations side. On the sales side, they're sales managers. We're not hiring specialists. We don't know what we can and can't ask. We don't know what the rules are until we do it wrong. Let's be honest. Like, you guys don't come around and say, hey, good job on the hire. You come around and say, you screwed that one up. And now here's the negative side to it, because again, history repeats itself. Guys, in the parts and service world, and Allie, you can jump in on this, guys, we're back to hiring heartbeats again. And I'm not proud to say that, but we're so desperate for technicians and service writers, because it's not about the money anymore, because you can make a lot of money doing both of those. The new generation, it's not about money, it's about time off. And we can go down, that's another path we can go down, but we don't know what we don't know. We're back to hiring heartbeats. So we're desperate. We aren't asking questions. So my point would be, it almost ties into your first question. What can HR do to help? Tell us the questions we should and shouldn't ask, sure. But how about questions that are meaningful? Because right now, if Allie comes and applies to me and she says, hey, I want to write service, okay, I'm going to hire her because she just wants to come to work. And I'm not trying to be desperate, but that's just the world we're living in.
Right.
Like, let's be honest. We all talk about hiring the waiters and waitresses. We've all got success stories. Those are kind of used up now. We've all kind of been there and done that. We need help, and we need help to know what we can and can't ask, what we should and shouldn't ask, and then we need help sit in the interviews. And we're okay being coached, I promise you. I wrote down a big, you got to train the trainer. We need to be trained just as well, because we don't know what we don't know. I promise you, we're on fire from the minute we open the door to the minute we go home. And then you go, oh, I got an interview at 1 o'clock. You walk in there. We're not in interview mode, I promise you. We're the fire's still growing on the service drive, because I just had to step away because I owe that interview to that somebody. Chances are we're already probably 10 minutes late for it, which is rude anyway. And we're on fire. And we need, so again, sit in the interview and help us, because we need critiqued as well.
Right. And I think the best take home point about that, Sean, is ask HR to provide you with a list of questions that you should ask in interviews. And then you have that structure like Fleming was talking about. You have the consistency that Kristina was talking about. It's a super simple item. Just give us the framework and then we'll follow it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That is very correct.
Absolutely.
All right. Allie, and if you don't have an answer to some of these, you can just say pass, by the way. And we'll go into the next. I'm not saying that to you. I'm saying that to everyone.
Now you dealt with that, as we're already 2 questions into the panel.
That's right. Well, I caught you, Sean. So, all right. Ready? How do you handle a dealer principal or fixed ops director who dismisses HR compliance or culture initiatives as HR fluff or unnecessary? Share your best argument or success story to convince a skeptic that things like flexible schedule, wellness programs, and diversity efforts aren't just coddling employees, but are smart business. Essentially, how do you convert an old school mindset to embrace new best practices in people management?
I love this question. So I will say this. I am very grateful, because the organization that I work for is in its 4th generation. And as fourth generation leaders, our COO, our CPO, our Chief People Officer, they're my age. And so we have handed the baton off to people who are generationally aligned with some of that fluff, as you called it. And I do genuinely believe that they have this vision of providing an exceptional place to work. And so we are, again, fairly progressive. So with that being said, I feel very grateful for that. I will say in the past, and even still people who I'm very, very close with have that more old school mentality. And oftentimes in the most professional, respectful, and loving way, it's, you just got to beat them over the head with it. It's, I love you. You want to work 6 days a week, bell to bell. You can do that. I'm not going to tell you to stop it, but not everyone needs to do that. And we're going to move forward so that we are a place that people want to be. Because to Sean's point, we don't have enough people. So what do we need to do to make it more exciting, to make it more enticing, and to, when we get the people here, make them want to stay because they have the life that they love and they're working for the life that they love and they're creating, not working all the time with no added benefit to that. So yes, just a respectful, loving, squeaky wheel. And most of the time that has been mostly successful.
All right, Sean, you touched on this earlier. I'm going to go to you next.
So for me, my favorite cliche, my favorite line is the speed of the leader, speed of the team. Okay.
Right.
So if the leader, and I'm not, we can't change the dealer principle. And I'm like Allie, I'm very fortunate. I work for the best of the best now. And they're not anti-HR, but I have worked for an anti-HR person before. To be honest with you, when I was in Florida, and guys, that culture doesn't work. So you can't include them because his answer was nothing gets the HR officer, you're fired. You can't have that attitude. So you just have to kind of go around it. Everything I do, if the opportunity arrives to include HR, I include HR. All right. We've made mistakes. I'll be careful what I say here. We had a situation, by the way, we had an FMLA case, guys. We don't know it. Back to what we don't know. We had an FMLA case. We don't deal with FMLA cases, and we didn't handle it correctly. It wasn't on purpose. It wasn't malicious. It's because we didn't know. And in return, I promise you that if we would have had a Fleming or certainly a Kristina involved from the get-go and didn't do it because Kristina charges $350 an hour or whatever she charges, so we chose not to include her, I promise you the outcome was worse than $350 an hour. And that FMLA word, that F stands for federal, and that just scares the heck out of me. I stay away from that. So to answer your question, what can we do? You have to include HR. And if you include HR, your staff will include HR because they know, again, they're not the big dark witch in the corner that you don't want to involve.
Right. Okay. Kristina, your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. No, I love that. And that's certainly what we want to hear from clients is that they're not being penny wise, pound foolish. Ultimately, we always tell folks, I mean, federal court litigation right now will run them about $500,000. That's a lot of bonuses and a lot of money that comes right off the bottom line. And it seriously impacts folks. The other thing that I think that I see a lot is that we just don't have time for the training. A lot of these organizations are very, very busy. And they think that it's dollars lost because we're pulling people off the floor. But you have to make time for that training. It ultimately is a piece of being compliant and making sure that you are avoiding that litigation. But in terms of people who ignore what HR is advising or ignore what legal is telling them, I think those folks need to understand that in a managerial role or capacity, especially if they sit in that role, they are the face of the company. They can very easily create that liability for us, putting their own jobs in jeopardy and their own place of employment in jeopardy. But even more so, they can have personal liability. And I think a lot of folks just don't realize that, right? So someone who is maybe overly abusive verbally or physically assaults, causes that emotional distress or causes an assault or risk liability is problematic. And they need to recognize that they're not just creating risk for the company, but risk for themselves as well by ignoring the advice that they're being given.
Okay, Fleming?
Wow.
So I love this one. And I think I encourage my HR people to, in particular, talk the language of the dealer, talk the language of the GM. So coming and saying, we're out of compliance is not what they want to hear. But saying, here's where we have exposure that could cost us money, cost us reputation, cost us people. If we turn it from compliance into dollars and disruption in productivity, that is something that is their language. And I think, the more that we bring solutions and not problems, hey, we can solve this with a 5-minute training, not just coming and saying, hey, we're out of compliance again. So, that way it really meets them where they're at in terms of business discussions.
Okay. Ted, do we have time for a lightning round question?
Lightning round. Go ahead.
Lightning round. Okay, Kristina, starting 30 seconds or less for your answer. What's the most innovative or unconventional thing you've implemented to improve compliance or culture in a fixed ops department that others might not think to try? It could be anything from starting each day with a team stretch, safety huddle, peer mentoring, or even a unique incentive or benefit. Looking for creative ideas, something that made a difference in your practice or your client's practice or in your shop and people dynamics and could inspire others. So 30 seconds.
Oh no. Come back to me because I don't know right off the top of my head. Why don't you start with me on this one?
Sean?
Leaderboard. No, hands down for me, it's the leaderboard. We share our hours, we share our sales, we share everything. It's not a popular decision. There's a lot of fighting against it and revolt at first. After you have it, you'll never regret it, and they'll ask for it.
Yeah.
Great answer. Allie?
2 things. One, we have quarterly events with our parts and service department, and that's really fun and bonding, and we look forward to it. And they ask for karaoke next time. And then number 2 is we started doing a weekly lunch where 2 of the managers, we started with 2 techs. We're almost done with our tech team, and we're going to include our advisors and our parts team. And so once a week, there's a lunch, and you get to look forward to it, talk about all the things that we can work on and the things that they like to see, and go to somewhere nice on the company's dime.
Nice. Fleming?
I'm going to go with 2 also. First and foremost, become a coach, not a commander. Do one-on-ones, learn your people, help with their challenges, be there for them, support them, and value them. Don't hide in the office. But 2, get your GM involved. There has been a study showing now that knowing the GM, having their ears, having them involved with the service center and the parts center, knowing them is really a driver of retention. So I encourage all my GMs, learn your people and learn what that matters to them.
Yeah, learn their names. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know that's the case that GMs don't know the names of the technicians who have been there for 20 years, keeping your customers coming back. I mean, it's real. That is really a problem. All right. And then batting cleanup, Kristina, any final comments?
Yeah, I would say with my clients that are in this industry, there are some that have actually given GMs and others that are in positions of decision-making authority actual direct access to me at times and have put them on the phone. And that has been helpful, especially if they have never had interactions with legal. I can ask those direct questions. I can answer their questions that they have.
Yes.
And I think it's that collaborative process, but also just they like being able to just get that access sometimes. So, where that permission is given, it's very preventative.
And let me just say for everyone who's listening, many or most insurance companies have a hotline that they sponsor that's free to the dealers.
Yeah.
And that's part of the premium that you pay is having access to those folks. So please give your HR department and or your department managers access to that hotline. It's very helpful most times. I'm not going to say all the time, but it's very helpful and you've paid for it. And so use it. If not, you can call Kristina, of course, and she'll be happy to answer your questions. All right, Ted.
Kristina and Tom, it's like a preventative wake-up call, right? So
we hope so.
What a great panel, Tom. What a great topic. And Fleming, to hear the need, especially in the fixed operations side of the business, as to the HR needs and to there's an awakening there, Fleming. So what a hotbed of activity fixed operations can be with HR.
Oh yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, great news. So I want to thank the panel, Allie Peters, our great colleague over in San Antonio at Jaguar Land Rover. Sean Kingrey in balmy Madison, Wisconsin at the Kaiser Automotive Group. Kristina, thank you so much. Very valuable information and a great resource for our industry. Fleming Ford, welcome back
Yes.
to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. I
So
say
glad to be
that,
back.
and great to see you back. Allie, we had Fleming with us, I think at event number 4 in Las Vegas, right before the world changed. Remember that? So
Yes.
yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Oh,
And Tom Kline, wow, what a great panel, great thought starter questions, and great work putting all this together. We're gonna have to come back and do it again, as you know.
Great. Let's do it.
Tom, if our audience wants to reach out to you, I know you keep dealers compliant. You help them be aware of what they need to do. What's the best way to reach out to Tom Kline and take advantage of your resources?
Yeah, my phone, I answer my phone. I try to 757-434-7656. My email's at the bottom of the screen. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, or you can go to my website, bettervantagepoint.com.
Great. Tom, thank you for all you do for the industry.
Pleasure.
And on behalf of the roundtable, on behalf of Sarah Van Tyne, we want to wish all of you and your families a happy Thanksgiving next week. So
You also.
thank you for all you
you.
do. All right.
Thank
Everybody, the compliance and HR panel with Tom Kline here with us today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.